Okay, I'm creating a video for my YouTube video log of my progress, and I thought this was a great time to make a progress, so maybe some of you who want to get an idea of how I created my mountains would know how I created my mountains, so that I can get a little bit of some terminology. What you're seeing here, this is the green line, and I'm calling it the green line because these are my two N-track modules, okay, put together here, and those are the two I take to shows. This section rolls away. I got it on casters, okay? So I can roll this out of the way so that I can take these two out and then move them away. So I'm calling, so that the back line, in other words, the CN locomotive that is running right now is on the N line. What is the N main line? And then this is the other one, this little New Haven is the N branch that I can call the gray line because I use gray as my color coding of my wiring. Right now these are both on DC, and I'm running these two DC power supplies here, one for one line. I think this is my gray and that's my green, and I'm just physically switching the wiring so that I can go from one line to another. I can also switch them all over to DCC. So if you look, I've got 7 circuit breakers here. They go to my DC, and I made wires, really long wires that come down underneath and connect to whatever line I want down underneath the board. I'm thinking I might go for some DP, some double pole center off, double pole, double throw center off switches so they can switch from one to the other. I've also put in my double crossovers are kind of my insulation between the lines, but I also have created this little wooden wedge that fits in the middle of the Kato double crossover. So that way, if the train derails, it hits that little wedge and will derail it completely, and then I won't have a connection between the two power supplies. So one power supply is doing this back line, and then which is the main green line, and then this branch green or the gray line is on a separate power supply. So right now I'm just physically switching the wiring, and then once I have that, I make sure no locomotives are on the track, and then I also have this little piece of wood that will stop it from hopefully crossing the two over just in case one derails. My track came out pretty nice, so I don't have a lot of derailments going on, so that's pretty cool. But anyways, when I made this, when I made these mountains on this N track, use foam, right? And I end up with all these scrap pieces left over. So I kind of didn't like that. I'm not an environmentalist, but I was making a lot of foam that basically getting thrown out and scrap all over the place. But I don't like wasting. I like to use all my material. So this time, instead of foam with Sculptamold over the top, this time I'm making my hills by cardboard. Alright, I'm taking strips of cardboard and making like my little hills. So in some cases I weave it, but I found that I don't have to weave it too much. I can just do this. I may still have to weave this before I put the rest of the Sculptamold. I've also noticed I don't have to be real neat with how I make it. This was a total mess. If you saw how I put those all together, real messy, but I was able to take the Sculptamold and put it in. The Sculptamold's nice because it hardens pretty quickly, but you do have enough time to form over and make the shapes that you want. But then it hardens pretty quick. But it doesn't do, so like this was done like 2 or 3 days ago, it's still real damp. So my basement is probably anywhere between 40 to 55% humidity. And once it gets really cold outside and it stays nice and dry, things are a little bit better. Summertime isn't so easy. I didn't get away completely from the foam because I like the foam for making my, my portals for my train bridges and things, because I could make these little dents and then paint it over so that it looks like brickwork. So I did still use some foam. Luckily I have a lot left over from the last time I created this. I'm thinking that for these 2 bridges, so I've got 2 bridges that come in here. This is my main, the biggest line, this big red line here, and then there's a red branch here that comes off to go to. I have a train station we'll show in a future video, but that's where all these are coming. And then obviously I've got the yellow, the blue, and the yellow line coming in here, and then here's my red. So I'm thinking that I'm going to make the same kind of railing kind of thing for my bridge, okay? And I think I'll do the same thing here. I might like to make it black because this is a different part of the layout, different part of the town, but I still have some of the green so that I can still make it that way. Struggling to get the speed on this New Haven. It's a 40-year-old Atlas Cotto. Power supply is their old Backman, so it is kind of running a little fast, but it's also hard for me to control to get the speed down to a freight line speed because it's kind of a breakneck right now. But yeah, that's how I decided to make the mountains. Just a little different technique. It isn't my technique. I've taken it from, I've seen people who are making their mountains where they do an outstanding job of weaving it to the point where theirs are so nicely done that you almost don't want to put the Sculptamold. You probably paint over the weaved cardboard to make it, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just gonna do this, and I thought the quickest way I could do it. One of the other things I want to add, what I did is to make this elevated section, I had one big piece of plywood where I drew out all my arcs in for my curves, and then I cut that out. So basically the plywood was just the road bed. So I have this plywood road bed that goes in, and all the pieces that were in the middle I cut out, I saved so that I could keep that contour going along the track. I didn't have to recut that. I could just piece it in, and I could just make whatever curve I wanted here. It's pretty nice because now I can create that elevation of a higher hill here without putting a lot of material. Notice it's pretty empty underneath there. I just get a few wooden stands, use wood glue to glue those together. I'm using hot melt glue to glue the cardboard in, and then it's just the Sculptamold on top. This is some that I've done a couple days ago. The other cool thing with the Sculptamold is I'm taking my putty knife that I'm using to spread it with, and I'm just creating little lines in here so it looks like the striations of the rocks. With this one, I'm probably going to leave it kind of smooth, so it'll be more like the smooth kind of rocks. I see if I can play with colors a little bit. But depending on how flat it is, if it's real steep, I'm going to keep it rock. If it's kind of flat, I'm going to put the grass over it like I did with the others over on the other side. But yeah, so this is my roller bench. I'll show, there's my train yard. Okay, it's my shelf module, if you will. It's 8 feet by 1 foot. This is 4 by 8. However, I hit a column here holding the house up. I better keep that. I couldn't cut that out to make this, so I lost a little bit of corner here. But so you know, there's how it goes. This is the red rolling section. I got my 2 end track sections. Showed you my the back shelf layout, which was my yard, and then I got to come up with something here. Still deciding what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, because it's not easy to get back in here. So I probably will try to keep all this pretty simple underneath here. But anyways, I think a little bit better way of making my hills, and that's this update. Hopefully we'll have something put together so I can show you what the final product looks like.